Hi guys, so we've seen quite a few different changes being released from GW about ninth edition, and at this point I kind of just wanted to do a bit of an overall summary of what I think could happen to the Harlequins in the new edition, basically, like based on everything that we've seen so far. Done a couple of these sort of recaps, but just wanted to kind of go through a lot of the changes, what affects us, what doesn't really affect us, and how it can sort of alter our play style and our army composition. So we've now seen that the game is going to be capped at 5 rounds. We've got smaller tables. We've got no stacking of -1 to hit modifiers. There are different detachments that have different costs, all the rest of it. What does all of this kind of mean for us? And and a big one as well is you cannot fall back and shoot if you have fly. Now, we are very lucky in that respect. This is a nerf to quite a few different factions, but it means that our strength of being able to fall back and shoot using Rising Crescendo is even more important and actually puts us in a really good position. And a lot of these are starting to they're balancing each other out in a lot of different ways. So we've got things like, obviously we can't multi-charge anymore, or we can, but things have to be close together. There are actions that we can now perform in order to gain secondary objectives and this sort of thing. So it's shaping up to be a really interesting, very strategic game, which I'm looking forward to because that is exactly what plays to our strengths. Now the -1 cap, I'm not going to lie, it does affect us. It really does affect us. But with the changes to strategic reserves, if we really want to have that big unit of 12 troops coming into the board without doing anything, either hopefully we can still deep strike them using our strat, or potentially we put them into reserve and then we come in later on the board. What we've also seen is a difference to the way in which units hold cohesion to each other, which is going to affect those horde armies quite a lot, including if we want to take those big 12-man troops. But honestly, I think this is definitely pointing towards MSU being the new format for us. I think we're going to be seeing 5-man bike squads, 5-man troop squads, character support, some of our transports, etc. This is kind of where we're looking at in terms of our army composition and actually what we want to do, because we are an elite army, and the idea that we're getting more MSU opponents, it has two different effects on kind of how we play. It makes it easier for us to kill stuff, which is great because we work very well as these little strike teams. That's why we're so good in like kill team and stuff. Having small units of strike team Harlequins going in, murdering something, potentially then also consolidating hopefully into the next unit, despite the fact that that there is damage that it can be done to us at that point. If we need to do that to mitigate shooting damage, we're going to do it. But as a whole, yes, that is the other issue, is that one of the things that we found in 8th edition is that we can kill stuff. That's never really been an issue for us. We kill stuff, but then we're left out in the open and basically we're going to get squashed by enemy shooting. This is still going to be a problem as far as I can see it. Us putting things into reserve can help that a little bit, but us also not being able to get the extra minuses to hit means that our damage mitigation is significantly reduced. But if we're going to start seeing more elite units, if we're going to start seeing more high strength, high EP weaponry, like the new melters that have just been previewed. Sorry, Eldari fans, I know that you guys are raging about the fire dragons at the moment, but let's just wait and see. Again, we see a lot of posts of people sort of going, "Oh my god, they're taking away from my faction." They're not necessarily taking away from your faction yet. Not yet. I mean, let's see what happens. Yes, Primaris are the big selling point. Primaris are going to get new units that specialize in a way that previously Eldari units were specializing in. Let's see what continues to happen. We don't know what will happen in the new Eldar Codex. We don't know what will happen in the new Harlequins Codex. We don't know what will happen in the new Drukhari Codex. There are lots of different ways in which our armies have played to their strengths in terms of using stratagems and key strategies and tactics to be able to win us games. And I don't think that's going to change. We're a glass cannon army that requires finesse and forethought in terms of what we're going to do. And this is shaping up to be a game that rewards you for playing in a clever way. You know, let's look at that in terms of the missions that we've seen so far. Let's look at that in terms of, you know, yes, you're not going to be able to run in with a big load of stuff and just murder everything and go, that's it. I think all of these are quite positive things for the game, not just because, you know, in competitive play we see a lot of these kind of things of just, I'm going to completely go all out on an artillery barrage, or I'm going to make sure that I have so many troops covering the board that you aren't able to do anything. A lot of these things seem to be there to mitigate the problems or the problem armies that we've seen across 8th edition, and I see that as a benefit. I don't want to play an opponent where I absolutely annihilate them turn 1, there's nothing they can do for 4 turns. It's boring. It's a boring game. Do you want that? I mean, maybe you're that kind of player, in which case, you know, fine. You're not going to enjoy 9th maybe as much as you did 8th, but I do think that a lot of the changes that we've seen have been there to mitigate a lot of issues, including things that we've seen in competitive play, even in things like ITC. Now, I've really enjoyed playing ITC, and I think that it's good that GW is incorporating some of these ideas about, you know, secondary missions and primary missions, but at a much higher scoring rate. So this is turning from, let's say, football to basketball. I mean, I'm not a massive sports fan, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's now a higher playing game with more and more points that you can get, which makes it easier for tournament organisers because we're going to have more outright wins and less draws. It makes it more rewarding for players to then see that they're racking up points, and even if they get the loss at the end, it ends up being, you know, maybe a little bit closer. We're seeing changes to units that have absolutely dominated the last few years of competitive play, that they're still going to be good. This is the thing. They're still going to be good. They're just not going to have the same staying power. And of course they're going to do this because GW needs you to buy models, and if you're not buying models, they're not making any money. So if your 8th edition competitive army is now no longer as valid as it was before, honestly, why are you surprised? This is what's going to happen. They're going to make sure that certain units that otherwise would not have seen a lot of play are going to become more interesting and more beneficial to us, you know? I can see with points adjustments as well that happening to our weaponry. I think our weaponry is going to change drastically in terms of the points. So we've already heard there are going to be points increases. I think the difference between, let's say, a kiss and a caress is going to be more poignant. I think the difference between a neuro disruptor and a fusion pistol is also going to be really noticeable, to the point where you really have to make decisions in your army composition based on what points do you have available, what do you want that unit to be able to do. Now, I know I'm rambling a little bit just generally about the sort of the state of the game as we can see it before it's happening, but I think so far I'm actually really excited about a lot of these changes. With a couple of exceptions. There haven't been many. There are a couple of exceptions where I completely understand, for example, that Tau certainly need a boost with all of these boosts to melee in terms of table size and all the rest of it. I would have liked to have seen it done in a different way. They're the shooting army. They're meant to be the shooting army. So why don't they shoot with a better ballistic skill instead of just being like, oh, we can overwatch you all the time instead of everyone else? That was one change, or lack of change, that I found maybe not necessarily dealt with in the way that I would have liked to have seen. I almost would have liked to have seen it the other way around, in which you had like marker lights giving the possibility for overwatch and the Tau as a whole getting a bonus to their shooting. But let's see how this changes, you know, let's see what happens in the game. You see a lot of people every single time that any rule comes out, it's suddenly, you know, opinion is divided on the subject and everyone's going, oh my god, you've ruined my faction. Or they're saying this is the best thing ever for us. Let's wait until we see everything, and obviously I'm not doing that, I'm discussing all the changes with you so far, but I really do think that as a whole, a lot of the balance issues that we had in the previous edition seem to be being addressed, which is only a positive for competitive play as a whole and for every faction actually as a whole. So Harlequins have struggled through most of 8th edition. We had a couple of months after our codex release when no one knew how to deal with us. We've had some boom and bust moments depending on what meta was coming out. But we've been an elite glass cannon army, and the name of the game in 8th edition was survivability. In 9th edition, that doesn't seem to be the be-all and end-all. So let's have a look and see what happens with this, but I really do think that we are, through a lot of these changes, almost getting an indirect buff to a lot of the abilities that we do have. So Rising Crescendo now is a genuinely powerful ability. It's not something that's shared by a bunch of units and other codexes. It is something that is really, really good. Ultramarines are really going to benefit from this as well. Those units where before you could just say, well, they're significantly more powerful, they still don't cost that many points, and I can still fall back, shoot, etc. simply because they have the fly keyword. They're no longer going to dominate in the way that they did before. What do you guys think? If you disagree with me, that's completely up to you. Just put it down in the comments. What do you think about the changes so far? How do you think they're going to affect Harlequins? How do you think they're going to affect Eldari? Are you looking forward to the new edition, or do you think that maybe there are some changes that you feel have not benefited the game? How do you feel about the new morale phase, for example? How do you feel about your particular faction or your mask that you play, and how they're going to be affected in the new edition? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm really, really grateful to everyone who has subscribed and everyone who has followed me right from the start. It's great to see this channel starting to grow. As I say, if you're interested in joining the Facebook page, I'll put the link down below in the description. Come and join the discussion. We love talking about all things Harlequins and talking about how these changes could affect us. For now, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you all next time, and thanks for watching.